on free vibration and damping analysis of composite structures. Our resource person, Dr. P. Jayaraj, Associate Professor, NIT Surathkal. He did his bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Madurai Kamaraj University in 1999 and done his master's in CAD from Government College of Engineering Salem and which is in the year 2002 and completed his doctorate from IIT Madras in the year 2009. He has served in various capacities in various colleges and universities. He received Young Scientist Award from DST in the year 2012. He is a gate qualified person. He done his masters and doctorate through the scholarship from MHRD. He has finished 3 funded projects and some more to come. He has published more than 70 journal papers and international in the international journals and conferences. We are proud to have the resource person to deliver his expertise here. Over to you, Dr. P. Associate NIT. Please, sir.
Okay. So I thank the organizers for inviting me and share my experience with the audience. So I will start the presentation. So the topic I'm going to present is free vibration and damping analysis of structures. Those who are working in polymer composites, we might have done dynamic mechanical analysis. That is the one most of the people used to do. So today first I will be explaining what is DMA and what is this free vibration and damping analysis. So how to do this vibration and damping analysis experimentally for a given structure or mechanical system. So it goes like this, a brief introduction about the natural fiber composites. Later I will be presenting a case study on that. Then dynamic mechanical analysis, then dynamic analysis. So these two are basically different. So we will understand that what is the difference in the coming slides. So then how to do this experimental model analysis, the process of finding natural frequency damping, and one more thing is there, mode shape, that is called as experimental model analysis. Then finally I'll show a case study of the work which I carried out with my one of my PhD scholars. So the natural fiber composites, now so many people are working. So the use of glass fiber or other synthetic fiber based polymer composites have the environmental issues. So during the processing and fabrication, then after the end use, the disposal. So that everywhere it has the environmental problems. So there is always a demand to develop new material which is not producing that much carbon footprint values. So in that way, people are developing these natural fiber composites or biodegradable composites. So it has its own issues. So basically, it is developed from these plant waste and these animal fibers also. People are fibers extracted from animals also. People are using. So the problem with natural fiber composites is their very lightweight, that is advantage, but at the same time the strength compared to the conventional metals and fiber, glass fiber or carbon fiber or Kevlar fiber kind of composites, it is very, very less. So so we people are using these for in situations where we have there is no load sharing requirement. So like the examples given, telephone stand, window frame, door panels, kind of thing. And in automobiles, they are using these natural fiber composites in interior applications. So for sound absorption kind of thing they are using. So the natural fiber composites are useful when you have the flexural load less than 100 megapascal. So there we can replace. But whenever there is a risk involved in structure like aircraft structure or automobile structures, that kind of structural components we cannot use these natural fiber composites. But in some other places where we are using plywood kind of thing, those places and wherever we are using the metals, there is no load carrying necessity. So in those kind of situations, we can use these natural fiber composites. So we have given some examples for application of natural fiber composites. So the first one, super light electric vehicle. So they developed the body of the vehicle with 100% biomaterial. So then one more in another figure, it shows use of natural fiber composites in car interior. So different car interior parts where we don't have this load requirement, load carrying capacity should be more. That requirement is not there. So there they replaces the metal or other material. Then automatically the weight of the vehicle will be reduced. So you know that will have the impact on the fuel consumption. So it will lead to some advantage in terms of fuel consumption. So we have other examples. So mostly it is used for interior components. So you can see in cars like Benz, they are using these natural fiber composites and various parts. But nowhere, as I mentioned, the main components, so they are not making use of these natural fiber composites because of the lower strength associated with them. So now we will see what is dynamic mechanical analysis. Someone doing research in polymer composites, they might be come across this word dynamic mechanical analysis. So whenever we develop a new material, especially polymer based material, which are having a viscoelastic property. So for those materials, we used to perform this dynamic mechanical analysis. So especially it is only for polymer based materials, not for metal matrix composites. So the polymer composites have the viscoelastic property. So it will have both viscous and stiffness property. So for example, if you take elastomer or you can say rubber kind of material, it will have both stiffness and more dominant this viscous, that is damping property also. But if you take the metals, so metals don't have that much damping compared to these viscoelastic materials. So we are using these dynamic mechanical analysis to characterize the damping capacity of a material. So I am stressing it is for a material. So we will develop material with some particular dimensions according to the standard. Then we will do this dynamic mechanical analysis. Basically, we will apply a sinusoidal stress and we will find the strain. So then we will get the stress by strain that will give us modulus. So as we are applying the load sinusoidally, which is going to vary like up and down. So then you will have these two factors, or one real, another one imaginary. So we will see that next. So basically dynamic mechanical analysis we are doing for materials which are having viscoelastic behavior. So that is basically polymer based material. So what we do is we'll apply a cyclic loading on a material, and we find some elastic modulus. So it is done in terms of varying temperature and varying time, frequency, and strength. So mostly people used to do the first one. They will vary the temperature because when you take a polymer with increase in temperature, the intermolecular bonding between the molecules will get changed with the increase in temperature. So mostly people used to do the with temperature at a particular frequency. Then some people used to do for varying frequency. So these are all general things. So as I mentioned, we are applying a sinusoidal kind of force, and we are finding the modulus. So as we are doing applying the force sinusoidally, we will get two components. So in phase component and out of phase component of the modulus. So the in phase component represents storage modulus. Out of phase component refers loss modulus. So in other way, you can say the real part of the modulus. You will get the modulus in complex form. So when you do this dynamic mechanical analysis, you will get the modulus of the material like Young's modulus in terms of complex form, like real plus I into imaginary term. So the real term is called as storage modulus, while the imaginary term is known as loss modulus. So here this real term, so that is storage modulus, indicates the energy storing capacity. So that is the one which we are usually considering as Young's modulus for all the material. So loss modulus, it depends on viscous property of the material. So if it is more viscous, so it is more flexible, you can say, then the loss modulus will be more. So the stiffness is represented in terms of storage modulus, while the damping is represented in terms of loss modulus. So these are all different. So the dynamic analysis analyzer, dynamic mechanical analyzer image has been kept at one side. The other side, we have an image of performing the DMA test under different modes. So the first one, so the dark shaded one is the specimen. So the sample is kept between the supports according to the mode in which we are going to find the modulus. So under shear, we will apply a load like this in the first one. Then for the second one, it is like a 3-point bending. So third one, dual cantilever. So one from this side and another one from the another side. So it is like a dual cantilever. Then you have a single cantilever. Then under tension or compression. So as the energy dissipation capability differs according to the way in which we are applying the load. So if I want to develop viscoelastic material for some shear application, then I have to find out under shear loading condition what is the dynamic properties like storage modulus and loss modulus. So similarly, if it is under bending kind of application, you have to do that study. So accordingly, they devised this kind of standard test. So this is one typical curve of a polymer material. It is for a PLA sample in tension mode at 1 Hertz. So it has 3 curves. So one is the storage modulus, that is E prime, and the loss modulus E double prime. Then you have this turn delta. So the turn delta is basically the ratio of these two. That gives the damping capacity of the material. So here you can see they are changing the temperature from some minus 50 degree to 100 degree Celsius. So there the tan delta goes to peak, then it comes down. So what happens is with the increase in temperature, the molecular bonding will get loosened. So that because of that, it will dissipate more energy. So the material will dissipate more energy as it is not stiff. We are heating, the intermolecular bonding becoming loosening, and with increase in temperature, that effect will be significantly more. So that the material will capable of dissipating more energy. So beyond some temperature, so you can see that peak, the corresponding to the peak here, it comes around 70 degree. So beyond that temperature, that bonding will be lost completely. So the material and the molecules will move freely in the polymer. So you won't get that solid phase. So that particular temperature is known as glass transition temperature. So you see that temperature, it is only 70 degree. So if you are proposing this polymer PLA, it is biodegradable material. So it has a lot of advantage. So now the people are developing food packaging materials using this PLA material. So it is having a lot of advantage in terms of disposal. After once you dispose, you no need to worry. So it will decompose, get biodegraded easily. In that way, it has a lot of advantage. But the problem is when you are using for some applications in which the operating temperature is higher, like 100 degree or 200 degree kind of thing, there you cannot use this kind of polymer. So for the epoxy, the glass transition temperature is around 140 degree. So that is the best epoxy. Epoxy is the best material in terms of glass transition. So in general, the polymers are not encouraged to work in thermal environment conditions. So when you have a component during its service, if the component experiences some high temperature, then if we are trying to reduce the weight in terms of polymer composite, you have to ensure the glass transition temperature of the material is within the range. So it should be above that operating temperature. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of variation. So the structure won't withstand that much heat. So this is all about DMA. So we'll basically we are finding the energy dissipating capability of a material. So when you develop new material and you are finding out this is the loss modulus, this is the storage modulus, and this is the tan delta value. So then I can compare with the existing material under same frequency and temperature. I can compare and I can find out whether the newly developed material is having better damping or not. So this is for a material. So again and again I am stressing when it comes to machine or structural components. So we are proposing a new material and you are finding these dynamic mechanical parameters like storage modulus, loss modulus, and tan delta. And you are comparing with the existing material and coming to a conclusion. So if you make a component like a crankshaft or piston or some other component, you can take car panels or aircraft panels, then what are all its dynamic properties? So the material properties are different. When you make a structure using that material, how the dynamic behaviors that material will be characterized. So that's how we are having this dynamic analysis of structures. So DMA is more fundamental, and that's the one everyone should do when they develop new material. So that is very basic requirement of a material, like your tension test and flexural test, 3-point bending test, all those things. Similar to that, if you want to characterize dynamic properties of your polymer-based material, you're supposed to do this dynamic mechanical analysis. The dynamic analysis is different. So this is like when you have in industry or in any applications, you have a disturbance. Like you have even in our house, when we have a grinding machine in operation or a washing machine in operation, there will be some unbalance. That unbalance will create vibration. Then that will create subsequently some sound. So mostly that sound irritates us. So we define that as noise. So in industry also, whenever we work, keep the material component in a working condition, obviously there will be some unbalanced kind of force will create vibration. So that leads to the sound, and it has a lot of other issues also. So how in this dynamic analysis, what we are going to do is, what are all the important parameters to quantify the dynamic behavior of a structure. So for example, you are designing a new component like frame. So instead of existing one, you are changing a geometry or you are changing material and you are fitting that. So if I want to find compared to the earlier structure, the newly proposed structure is going to vibrate more or less. So then you have to do this dynamic analysis. So there, these are all some examples I have given. Like when you have these in building, when you have unbalance, when you are operating some electric motor, you will get the vibration. Similarly, when you have a marine kind of structures, there the impeller will create some vibration. So that is one kind of source. Then you have these earthquake kind of excitation. So these are all different kind of excitations. So the vibration is there everywhere. So in our day-to-day life, is there everywhere. So and in industrial scenario, we have that we experience that more severely. So when we operate the mechanical components, so obviously due to the relative motion and due to the unbalance and other misalignment, so due to various reasons, the component will tend to vibrate. So that leads to other problems apart from noise. So due to vibration, it may not produce the component with actual dimensions or actual size. So like that, it has its own issues. So it may not um, fulfill the functional requirement. So these are all some undesirable effects of vibration. So due to faulty design and poor manufacture, there is unbalance in the engines, which causes excessive and unpleasant stresses. The vibration causes rapid wear of the machine parts like bearings and gear. So, if the frequency of excitation coincides with the natural frequency, then you have the resonance. So, the problem with the resonance is naturally every structure is capable of vibrating in different patterns. So we will come to that again. That we'll discuss. We'll try to understand what is mean by natural frequency. Why people are calling that as natural frequency, and what happens when it meets when we are exciting the system with any one of the natural frequency. So resonance, most of you will have some idea. So we will discuss in the coming slides. So in general, it is not vibration as a mechanical engineer. Mostly we used to avoid. So we have some useful applications also, like in casting and forging industry, to separate the mold and the component. They use some vibrating. They will vibrate the casting and that combined one. Then they will get the things separated, like mold and the component. So similarly, in all musical instruments, because of vibration of the musical instruments, it disturbs the air columns and air medium. Then through air, we are getting the music. So there, basically, the vibration is the one makes the pleasure of enjoying the music. Then another example is concrete drill. So then using these vibratory conveyors, hoppers, and compactors, we separate the particles of different size. So it has some useful applications also. So why we have to study this vibration? So we know that one thing, we have to avoid resonance. For that, when I develop a new component, I know the component is going to experience some frequency, excitation frequency from some hertz to some hertz. So then I should ensure that there is no natural frequency of the developed component in that range. So another one is sound radiation. So in our country, people are not paying much attention to these acoustics or sound radiation problems. So still we have norms. When Diwali time, there is a limitation. So we have some below some decibel only we should keep the crackers and all those things are there. But in most of the developed countries, they have the very much concern about sound radiation, especially the buildings located near to the highways or airport kind of things. So there are a lot of limitations or norms. So the companies should follow that norms, and accordingly they should reduce the sound level. So the another one is whenever we have vibration, it will radiate sound. So when the sound is not pleasant to us, we call that as noise. Then it has another thing. So I should know the amplitude with which the structure is vibrating and the pattern in which it is vibrating. Then I can plan for the control and condition monitoring. Another one is first one, design for fatigue load. So when we design a component under static load, the component will fail in yielding. That depends on whether it is a ductile material or a brittle material. That is under static load. But when it comes to the fatigue load, the component is subjected to some cyclic loading. So it experiences some stress like about the mean position. It follows something like it starts from no load, then it will go to maximum and it will come to neutral. Again, it will go to maximum in opposite direction and it will come to neutral. So that will be following for n number of cycles. So that's what when the component is under service, it will experience vibration. So then basically the cross section experience cyclic load. So to design the component under cyclic load or fatigue load, I should know the amplitude with which the stress is applied. So for that, I need to find out this vibration amplitude. So that is directly proportional to the stress amplitude. So it will be directly linked to the stress. So in that way, I should know the vibration levels so that I can design the component against the fatigue load. So we know very well that based on our design of machine element experience, understanding, the failure under fatigue load is much lower compared to failure under the static load. So when I want to design a component against fatigue load, I should know that mean stress and alternate stress kind of values. So those values I will get from this vibration analysis. So in that sense, the dynamic analysis of structures or machine components is important. So now basically we are coming to the core topic which we are going to discuss today. So far discussed DMA, dynamic mechanical analysis of a material. When we develop a new material, especially polymer based material, so to quantify its energy storing and energy dissipating capability as a function of temperature and as a function of frequency, we are finding these storage modulus and loss modulus. That is for a material. So when you have a structure made out of that material or in general any other material, how to find the dynamic characteristics. So when it comes to dynamic characteristics, these three are the important dynamic parameters, like how you are telling the Young's modulus. When it comes to the static analysis, we have Young's modulus. So similarly, when you have the dynamic analysis, first you have to understand what is the natural frequency. So that is the very most fundamental quantity. So why we need to find the natural frequency, so that I will come to know whether that is close to the excitation frequency or away from the excitation frequency, to avoid the resonance. Then damping. So damping. So here I have given one response. So you might have studied again in your undergraduate dynamics of machinery course, vibration. There, this is like a free vibration response I have given. So I have one more thing, like a forced vibration response. So you know that without damping, for undamped condition, when we are exciting the system with natural frequency, the response go to infinity theoretically, but practically every component will have some amount of damping, so it will go to infinity. So the main thing is, with increase in damping, the vibration amplitude is used to get reduced. So whenever I do the analysis, if I get the damping, so that will give me the idea, the response. So when force is applied, like I developed a component like a frame. So I am putting electric motor and I am operating that with some frequency. Then I can find out if more damping is there, then my vibration levels are going to get reduced. So in that way, for vibration response, we have to find out the damping associated with the component. So for we are finding natural frequency just to quantify whether it is near to the exciting frequency or not. So when it comes to damping, it is just to have understanding, like it is going to radiate more sound, or it is going to vibrate with more amplitude or less amplitude. So the last one is mode shape. So the mode shape, I have given the examples for a beam, cantilever beam and simply supported beam. I have given only two. Basically, you have infinity number of mode shapes. So the meaning is, naturally, according to the material distribution or geometrical variations or the boundary condition, every structure capable of vibrating in different patterns. So it is like when you take our actors or actress, so they are like normal when they are not making any movement in during some song. So according to the music, or they will force their body to vibrate in different pattern. So the meaning is, they are capable of vibrating, their body is capable of vibrating in different patterns. So if you take dancers like Prabhudeva, so when he is not dancing, he is the normal. But when he is exhibiting different movements, so what basically he is doing is, his body is capable of vibrating in different patterns. He is forcing his body to vibrate in those patterns. So you can apply the same thing to the machines also. So the machines, whether we are forcing it to vibrate or not, naturally it is capable of vibrating in infinity number of patterns. So when it vibrates with a particular pattern, that is basically called mode shape. So when it vibrates with a particular pattern, it will vibrate with some frequency. So that frequency we are calling it as natural frequency. So every person, see, I may vibrate my body with some frequency. So with same frequency, somebody else's body may not vibrate. So you can consider two extreme persons, one tall and thin person, and another one somewhat short and very bulky in body. So they cannot vibrate their body with the same frequency and the same pattern. So as it is inherent to the nature with respect to their stiffness and mass and how their body is distributed, and again this damping will not come. So it is all about naturally it is capable of vibrating in different pattern, and whenever it vibrates with some particular pattern, it will vibrate with a particular frequency. So as I mentioned, there will be infinity number of possible patterns. So the lowest one frequency we are calling it as fundamental frequency, then it will have second, third, four, likewise. So this is the reason why we are calling the frequency as natural frequency, because it depends on only the systems K and M. So you try to recall omega equal to root K by M. So whenever you have two different system, K and M is going to vary. So accordingly, the omega is going to vary. That means frequency is going to vary. But K and M depends on inherent material and mass of the system. So that is the reason we call the frequency as natural frequency. So we have three basic things. One is natural frequency. That will come to know whether is there any frequency near to the exciting frequency, so that we can avoid the resonance. So next is damping. So when if I know the damping without performing response analysis also, I can come to a rough idea like it will not vibrate more. The next one is vibrating pattern. So the advantage of vibrating pattern is I will come to know when it is vibrating in second mode or third mode or some any X mode, wherever the vibration amplitude is less. So you can see this second mode of this simply supported system. At the center, it has zero amplitude. So when I locate my source, like some electric motor at the center, so I can even operate the motor at the second frequency. But as I am locating the excitation at the center of the beam, so nothing will happen. So that means we are disturbing at the nodal point where the vibration is zero. So that is the information your mode shape will give. So these three are very basic fundamental parameters for any dynamic analysis. So when you look at this FEM or any other analytical method, after this, when you are having these three values like damping factor, natural frequencies, and mode shape, you can easily find vibration response and sound radiation. So then you have another things like a flutter study, so many other studies you can do. So these three parameters are basically called the basic parameters of a dynamic analysis. So now we will see how to find these free vibration parameters experimentally. So the entire process is known as simply model analysis or experimental model analysis. So the process of finding these three parameters, natural frequency, damping, and mode shape, it is known as experimental model analysis. Basically, you should need software and other requirements. So the basic idea I will explain first. So you consider a beam made of some aluminum or mild steel. So the material is the same and the cross section is same. So it is like a cantilever beam. So one beam is made of 1 meter. The another beam is made of 0.5 meter. So again, I am repeating, you consider two different beam made of same material and having same cross section. The only difference is one beam is 1 meter long, another beam is 0.5 meter long. So when I am giving some disturbance at the end of the beam, just I am lifting up and leaving. Then I am recording the vibration response. So with respect to time, it will give some time history response like this. So when I am doing that for 1 meter beam, I will get one kind of displacement pattern with respect to time. I won't get the same pattern for 0.5 meter length beam. So I will definitely get the another pattern. So this is the basic idea these engineers used to find the natural frequency. So we call it as free vibration because we are applying a force and we are removing. Just after the removal, we are recording the response with respect to time. So that displacement response is going to be different for different component. So when I do FFT, so like I am having the response with respect to time. So when I make this conversion of time domain response to frequency domain, so I will get a curve like this. So in the bottom one, I will get a curve like this. So wherever you have the resonant frequency, you will get the peak. So whenever I am changing the material or the cross section or length of the component for a simple beam, so I'm going to get different kind of time history response. So accordingly, these peaks are going to come in different location. This is the very basic idea behind this capturing or finding free vibration frequencies. So even if you have oscilloscope, with that also you can do. The only thing, you can find only natural frequencies. You cannot find any other parameter. So hope you are able to understand the basic idea behind finding natural frequency. So somehow you have to give initial disturbance. It is like pulling up or pushing down and leaving for a beam. So similarly for engine or some other component, you have to give some excitation. They give that excitation with the help of a hammer. So impulse hammer. So this just they will energize. So then once they hit, it starts vibrate. So they will capture that time history response. Then they will do this time domain to frequency domain conversion using FFT. So wherever peak is there, that indicates the natural frequency. So this is the basic idea behind finding natural frequency. So if I am having a crankshaft or some other thing like connecting rod or some engine cylinder block. So if I want to find the natural frequencies of that kind of system, so I have to give some excitation and I have to record the response with respect to time. Then even in Excel, you can do this time domain to frequency domain conversion, and you can use the MATLAB kind of thing also. So that is very easy. When you want to find the natural frequency. The problem comes why when we want to find the damping and mode shape, then you need some other components and equipments and software to find the mode shape and damping. So that we will discuss in the coming slide. So damping in composites. So the damping in composite is much higher compared to metals. So metal, it is like a single phase material. Composites, you have the fiber and matrix. So when it is in a dynamic condition, like vibrating condition, the interaction will be there between the matrix and reinforcement. So due to that, the energy dissipation will be more. So that is the advantage of these fiber reinforced composites compared to metal. So in metal, as I mentioned, it is a single phase material, but composites, you have the fiber and matrix. So when a component is vibrating, the fiber will interact with the matrix. So because of that, there will be more energy dissipation. So this two-phase interaction between the matrix and reinforcement enhances damping of the polymer composite material. So the viscoelastic nature of the composite material makes them to dissipate more vibration energy. So additionally, the polymer composites are basically viscous in nature. So due to this reason, damping of composites are much higher. So this is what I told. When I want to find natural frequency, you have to do this pre-vibration, meaning you have to excite the system and find the time history response. Then you do FFT, you will get the peak. So the response of different structure will be different for the same initial disturbance. So even some other initial disturbance also, you will get the same response. So engineers and scientists used this to find dynamic characteristics of a structure. So this is a very basic idea. So if our interest is only to find the natural frequency, one has to record the response of the structure with respect to time. Then when you convert this into FFT, the peaks in the frequency response curves, the natural frequencies of the structure. So as I mentioned, you have consider 1 meter beam and 0.5 meter beam made of same material and same cross section. You give same kind of disturbance to both the material. If you look at the time history response, it will be entirely different for 1 meter long beam and 0.5 meter long beam. So likewise, any system if you take, and the recorded time history response will be different according to the inherent damping and stiffness and mass. The amplitude will be varying. So now, how to find these mode shapes? So before that, we will try to understand what is mean by mode shape. Already I have explained. So here I have shown up to some 5 modes of a simply supported beam. So basically it goes like a harmonics. So first it goes like some half sine pulse for the first mode. Second mode is like second harmonic. So you will get a complete sine wave. So third one complete sine wave, again one half sine wave order. So fourth one you will get 2 half sine waves. So likewise it keeps on increasing. This is for a simple component. But if you take the engine component and other our mechanical systems, you will get slightly complicated mode shapes. So there also, this is another one example. So they conducted using the software Abacus model analysis of this frame. So there you see the frame is like this, but it is capable of vibrating in different patterns. So these are 6 different patterns are given. Still it will have n number of patterns. So as I mentioned, like this building, our dancers also, when they are not dancing, they are idle, but they are capable of exhibiting different kind of patterns, like different kind of movements. So meaning their body is capable of vibrating in those kind of patterns, and they are forcing the body to vibrate in that pattern. So this is the another example. So you have this frame. You can see it is capable of vibrating in different patterns. So every pattern, when it vibrates, it will have some associated frequency. So that frequency is called natural frequency. So now we'll see this how to find this mode shape and the another one damping in the coming slides. So so far our understanding is, if I want to find only natural frequency of a machine component or a structure, I need to disturb that component and I have to record the time history response. Then I have to use this FFT algorithm to get the frequency versus displacement. Then wherever peaks comes, that is the natural frequency. So that if I want to find only the natural frequency. When I want to find a mode shape, it is somewhat complicated. There I need this setup. So I need one impulse hammer, then I need one accelerometer, impulse hammer to disturb the system, to excite the system, accelerometer to find the response with which amplitude the system is vibrating. So those that 2 data should be given as an input to data acquisition system. Then that data acquisition system will be sending that data to the software. So we have one thing known as model analysis software. So here I mentioned. So it is like you need a computer. So in that you have to install that software. That software will do this mode shape calculation and other things. So basically we need a impulse hammer, then accelerometer, then you have a data acquisition system, then you need one computer with the model analysis software. So that is somewhat costly. You need around 8 lakhs to get this entire system. Minimum you need 7 or 8 lakhs. So we will see with a simple cantilever beam again. We will see how to get these mode shapes. So this first mode will go like up and down, so like a typical cantilever. So the second mode comes like a second harmonic like this. So it will have one node. So node means where the vibration amplitude is 0. So at this point, the vibration amplitude is 0. So next, third mode, you will get two nodes. So like one here and another one here. So we are dividing, when we want to do this model analysis, you have to divide your structure into some number of small pieces, like your finite element divisions. So here also beam we are converting into three divisions, like 1, 2 and 3. So then it is three modes are given. So we will see. So we will get one thing known as a frequency response function. So actually lot of mathematics involved in this. So I'm skipping mathematics and I am explaining only the theoretical aspects behind this. At the end of the presentation, I have given some link, so you can go through, especially the model analysis and non-mathematical approach or explanation by Peter Avitable. So that is very good. So actually these content, some of the slides I have taken from Dr. Peter Avitable presentation only. So mode shapes are obtained from imaginary part of the frequency response curve. So here we have three divisions. So when we are hitting at the third location, and we are finding the response at first location and second location and third location, that is given in the first row. So basically you are hitting, you will get the time history response. So you are doing FRF, frequency FFT. So that is when you are doing for the first location, you will get this one. When you do for the second location, you will get this one. When you do for the third one, so like this. Similarly, you are hitting at second location and finding the responses at 1, 2, 3. Similarly, you are hitting at third location and finding the response at 1, 2, 3. So everywhere you will get the first column of responses, first row of the responses, then second row of the responses, and the third row of the responses. So here you can see this second column and second row. So the second column and the second row, you will get only two peaks. So because we are keeping this second point, that is the nodal point. The vibration amplitude is 0. So that here we are hitting. So when you are hitting at the nodal point, so as that is not capable of vibrating with any amplitude, that is 0 amplitude. So you won't get a peak when you are measuring at the second point. So that's the reason. So when you have 3 points, you will get 9 such FRFs. So when you have n number of points, you will get n cross n. So the things goes like this. You are hitting and you are finding the time history response. Then you are doing FFT every time. So you are hitting at first location and finding the first response. So that is basically H11. So here H33, what it indicates is we are hitting at third location and finding the response at third location. So likewise, you have to get. Then it is consists of real components and imaginary components. These displacement values. So when you separate that real and imaginary components, you will get curves like this. The same curve, it consists of real and imaginary components. When we separately plot the real and imaginary part, you will get curves like this. Then we use this imaginary part. So we are separating. So I am repeating, we are dividing the structure into n number of parts. You are hitting at one place and finding response at other points. So likewise, you are finding frequency response functions. So then you are getting this frequency response function. You will get like array. So when you have 3 location, you will get 3 cross 3, 9 such response. So that if you divide into real and imaginary part, you will get these plots like a real part and imaginary part. So you consider only the imaginary part. Now, if I want to find the first mode, so what I have to do is I have to connect the first peak in. I have to consider any one row. I have to consider any one row among the 3, and for the first node, I have to consider the first peak. So then I have to join. So a first peak comes for the first here, second here, and third here. So if I join with a smooth curve, I will get the first mode. So similarly, I can do for considering the second row also. So second row, I am considering the first one, again first one, and I will get the first mode. So if I want to get the second mode, so what I have to do is I have to connect. I can consider any one in the first row or the third row, because in the second row there is no second peak. So I have to consider the first row or second row. So I am considering the third row. So in that second peaks I am connecting. So second peak 1 here. Here actually it is 0. So that, and the third peak comes here. So you will get the second mode. So likewise, if I want to find a third mode, so what I have to do, I have to consider the third peak. So here, so one and the second one here and here. So it comes down, again it goes up, again it comes down, again it goes up. You will get the third mode. So this is the basic idea behind finding the mode set. So for any given system, you have to divide that into n number of subparts. So like your FEM, you can say. Then you have to excite at one point, and you have to find the response at different points. So if there are n points, you will get n cross n frequency responses. That you decompose into real part and imaginary part. You take the only the imaginary part. Then if I want to first mode, you consider only every one row, any one row, and in that row, what is the first peak in every FRF, and when you join, you will get the first mode. So similarly, when you connect second peak and third peak, you will get the second mode and third mode. So these are all some examples how they do this frequency, sorry, the experimental model analysis. So first one is like door of an automobile. Second one, again door of a car. So here this is the exciter. So this is some shaker kind of thing they are doing. So again it is some kind of aircraft helicopter wing kind of component. So there, instead of exciting through hammer, they are exciting through some vibration shaker. So instead of using one vibration sensor, they are using more. So then they will excite and they will find the response. So these are all some examples. So now we are coming to the last one, how to find this modal damping. So why it is called modal damping? So damping, it comes in different forms. So already I assume that with your basic understanding, you know the different types of damping, like viscous damping, Coulomb damping and crystaltic damping kind of thing. So that is the thing what you studied. So here, when it comes to these components like aircraft panels made of fiber reinforced composites, it has n number of mode shapes. So only, even though if it is having infinity number of modes, first few modes are like dominant. So in that way, we no need to worry. It is having infinity number of mode shapes. How to study all those things? Really, first 20 or that many number of modes only very important. So the higher modes, basically the damping will be more, and it will not get excited much. So we'll come to this understanding what is mean by modal damping. So I told in composite we have a fiber and matrix interaction. So when it vibrates in first mode and when it vibrates in different mode, for example, when it vibrates in first mode and when it vibrates in second mode, the vibration amplitude will be different, and the fiber matrix interaction also will be different. So the fiber matrix interaction will be different for different mode as it is vibrating in different pattern. So every pattern it may not give the same interaction. So because of that, every mode the interaction will be different. So we call that as the modal damping. That's where we get this modal damping as the word. So whenever you have these metals, so there we have only structural damping. So we know that compared to mild steel, you have the cast iron is more having more damping. So that is like structural damping. So metals may not have different damping for different modes, but when you have these composites, you have this interaction different for different modes. So you are going to get this modal damping different for different modes. So first mode will have one kind of damping, second mode will have some other value of damping likewise. So this is one simple single degree of freedom frequency response. So the first one is like a frequency response. With increase in frequency, what is happening to the displacement? So this shows the Bode plot. So the next one is phase difference. So we know that when it is at the resonance, there will be a 90-degree shift in the phase. So we will see how to find this damping. So far we understood natural frequency. We have to disturb the system, record the value, time history value, make this FFT conversion. Wherever peaks comes, that is the natural frequency. Next, mode shape. So for mode shape, we need to excite the system at one place and measure the response at a different place. Find the frequency response functions. Then you consider any one row. You have to decompose the thing into real and imaginary. Imaginary parts you have to take, and you have to find the mode shape. So when it comes to damping, we use this Nyquist plot. So we have a frequency response function. It is going to have a real and imaginary part. So when you make a graph with real and imaginary values, so you will get some curve like this. You will get some curve like this. So here you can see it comes like almost like a circle. So the curve will be very smooth when there is no peak in the response. So in a response, if you have a peak, then you will get a slope like this. Instead of being a smooth curve, you will get a slope like this. Similarly, for the next peak, so next peak likewise. So this when we are converting this, we are plotting the real component of the frequency response function and the imaginary component of the frequency response function. Then how to find the resonance frequency. So what using this also we can find a resonance frequency. So as I mentioned, they will plot this circle. Then they will find out, see here, from here to here, it is a smooth circle. So then it comes like a stepped kind of pattern. So because of peaks in the frequency response function. So we have to find out this d theta by df. So for which one it is maximum. So that uh, one you have to consider. So for example, for this segment, this d theta by d theta by df, it is maximum means, so at which point this imaginary uh, line intersect with that circle. So that is the natural frequency. Then we are using one formula like this, FC and FD and F resonance. So there it is intersecting. So we are finding we have different segments for which one this d theta by dx is more. So that we are segment we are considering. So where it intersect with the imaginary part of the curve, there we have the natural frequency. Then the other extreme frequencies are called FC and FD. Then if you use this formula, you will get the damping. So this will be different for different mode. So basically, I discussed how to find natural frequency and mode shape and damping of a given structure. So now, if you have any doubt, you can ask. So otherwise, I will present the case study.
Sir, I am Ram Gopal Reddy from RVR&JS College of Engineering.
Yeah.
Sir, how to determine this modal damping by using software like ANSYS or other Abacus?
Yeah, actually, you should have done DMA analysis of that material.
Okay.
Experimentally. Okay. So when you do DMA analysis, you will get these two properties like I have shown on curve for PLI. So like E prime and E double prime. So here E is like real part. E prime is like imaginary part. Okay. So we have one thing known as modal strain energy. So you have a vibration mode shape, like first mode, second mode kind of thing. So I will explain in step. First, you have to give the property like a real property, and you have to run the ANSYS or Abacus and find the natural frequency. Okay. Then instead of real value of the Young's modulus, you give complex value of the Young's modulus and find the natural frequency. So that imaginary natural frequency divided by real natural frequency, that is the damping value. Understood? Huh?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So that is one. That is basically the idea behind that is modal strain energy. So when we are having the total energy, that is with respect to real part. So energy dissipated is corresponds to imaginary part. So you can refer some of our papers. So you can go to Google Scholar and you can type my name. So we uses these using ANSYS also we have done, and using some Fortran coding also we have done some work. So basically you need these properties calculated experimentally. So real and imaginary part. Then you have to feed those values and you have to conduct these vibration analysis separately for real and imaginary. So if you divide that imaginary frequency by real frequency, you will get the damping value.
Actually, previously, so we did so that vibration analysis, sir, free vibration analysis. So we got frequency and then mode shapes, but I don't know how to determine this modal damping. So that's why I asked you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
if it is a simple, it is not a composite. You have only one Young's modulus, like E. Then you can do like this.
No, actually on composites only, so we did, sir.
E1, you have the values like E1, E2, E3 kind of.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Then it is somewhat complicated. What you have to do is E1 also will have real plus imaginary part. E2 also will have real and imaginary part, and G also will have real and imaginary part. But DMA you have to conduct separately for 0 fiber orientation and 90-degree fiber orientation. Then you have to find E1, E2, G2 values and all.
Okay.
So basically you can read some of our papers. So then you get an idea.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, experimentally you have to find that loss factors. So then you can do.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Is there any other question?
Good morning, bro, sir.
Yeah.
This is Venkateswaran from Rajalakshmi Engineering College.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
Yes, sir. So you are told with the help of vibration analysis, I can able to relate to fatigue loads.
Yeah.
How we can able to relate, or what we can able to find with that relation, sir?
For fatigue load, we need amplitude of stress.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for example, we are exciting the system with some particular frequency. For some 100 hertz or some hertz. So then you will get this vibration amplitude.
Yeah. Okay.
So that you can relate to the dynamic state.
Okay, sir. Another thing is, in some of the paper, DMA analysis, they are specifying E prime, E double prime, whereas in some they are specifying G prime, G double prime. Is both are same or different, sir?
No, actually, when it comes to see, we have some thing like when it comes to our typical polymer-based materials, we are taking under tension mode or under 3-point bending mode. So we get these Young's modulus E and E prime. So when you do under shear mode, you have some like elastomer, magnetorheological elastomer kind of material. They do the test under shear loading. So when they are representing G means that is basically they are representing shear modulus. So E means basically they are representing our this elastic modulus.
Young's modulus. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. So now I will continue with this some case study. This is the work done by one of my PhD scholar, Dr. Rajesh. So it is like a free vibration behavior of intraplay woven natural fiber hybrid polymer composites. So what we have done is we considered two different fibers, like one jute, another one is banana. So these are all different kind of weaving pattern people are generally using. So one is plain. This is the one most of us are familiar. So another one is basket and satin, twill, haka back kind of thing. So these are all different weaving patterns. So what we first done is when we make a composite, these are all like, it is like fabric. So first most of the natural fiber people used to use in short and random orientation because of various reasons. So we try to analyze when we make like the natural fiber into yarn, then using the yarn when we make some fabric, then when I reinforce that into the matrix, how much the properties are getting enhanced. So that's what the first intention. So basically we compared our result with certain random orientation also. So when it comes to this woven form, we found that these are all some patterns in which they are weaving. and making the fabric. So then we analyzed this influence. Next is this intraply woven composite. So here we have two things. One is like a warp direction, another one webbed. You can say horizontal and vertical. So when we are reinforcing, instead of making the fabric with only jute or banana, so when we are making jute in one direction and banana in another direction, what happens? So this also we have done along with that study. So that is basically called as intra-ply fabric, as we are using two different yarn, one along the warp direction and another one along the webbed direction. So again, as I mentioned, we are using these two fibers like banana and jute fibers, and we made. So here, intraply only I explained. So the first one, jute is kept in warp direction and banana is kept in the webbed direction. So that comes here like WJ, WB. So then the reverse one. So banana in warp and jute in webbed, that is WB, WJ. So then when we keep both warp and webbed banana, so that is like you will have two these fibers in both the directions. So along the warp and webbed, you will have both these banana and jute. So for comparison, we have considered this shortened random composite also. So this is we prepared using this conventional method. So we have taken the composite of same dimension 270 millimeter, 250 and 3 meter. So that kind of plate we prepared first. Then we have made a specimen of size 170 mm and 17 mm and 3 mm for the free vibration. So unlike your tensile test or flexural test or compression or any other typical test, for vibration there is no standard. So what we do is we make as a beam. So beam, the length is more and compared to the width and thickness. So with that sense, we decide the dimension. There is no any standard for this. Again, one can analyze like you can take a very thick beam like 50 mm and 5 mm thick, 50 mm length and 5 mm thick. Someone else can take 500 mm length and 5 mm thick. So that way you can make the difference. So you can analyze a thick beam, thin beam kind of thing. So here we considered this dimension 170 mm. So first we made like a plate, then from that we cut the beam specimens of this dimension. So this is the setup what we used. We have done this composite laminate, then you have the accelerometer, then impact hammer, this laptop with the software. So this is the typical curve. So here you can see this one with numbers indicated. So beam, we are creating only a line. So when you are analyzing like a plate, you are going to create a area. So when you are analyzing like some crankshaft or multi-cylinder engine, then you will have the volume. So you cannot create like your finite element mesh. So at the end, I kept some link. If you go through, you will realize even some really complicated geometry also, they are making very coarse mesh. So as I mentioned, FEM as similar to FEM, you have to divide. You no need to have that typical ideas like near stress concentration. I have to keep more mesh, more elements, all those things. Nothing. So and practically it has a lot of issues. So you no need to confuse with the division of the component. It should be similar to your FEM. So just I told you have to divide. That's all. So if you are having a beam-like specimen or plate-like specimen, it is easy. But you have some actual component, it is going to be really complicated, locating the sensor, everything. So there, you should have an idea about the components behavior. Accordingly, you have to find the location at which I have to select the keep the sensor. So it has its own issues. So this basically indicates the beam. We modeled only, we created a line with some 10 or some number of divisions. So this is the frequency response functions. So if I am making 10 division, then I will get 10 number of responses. So from that, whenever in the software, whenever I am moving close to the peak, so here you can see the first peak, then second peak, third peak, likewise. So whenever I am moving the cursor near to the peak, I will get the corresponding mode shape here and this damping value. So here you can see frequency 104 hertz, damping 0.0194. So this is the way they calculated the damping. So this software gives this information directly. So as I mentioned, if you want to find only frequency, if you have to record only the time history response, then you have to do frequency response curve. You can easily do. But when you want to find these mode shapes and damping, you need this software and this sensor, all those data acquisition system, everything. So this is how a typical software will look. So here, given the first three modes of a cantilever case, here you can try to understand for a plain pattern and basket, twill, satin, and huckaback. So that basket pattern is slightly higher, like 44 hertz for the first mode, second mode 297, and third mode 830. So compared to other cases, and you can try to understand only whenever we are changing the weaving pattern, the frequencies are varying, so it is not the same. So for different cases, we are getting different values of frequency, and even for the particular case, like the plain woven, when I consider the first mode, the damping comes like 0.0596. The second mode, it is 0.0526, and for the third mode, it is 0.0310. So according to the mode, the damping also varying. So you can see. So the weaving pattern influences both natural frequency and damping. So here we found this basket pattern is giving a higher frequency. Because of that, we have one term called crimp. That crimp between the yarns is more for the basket pattern. And huckaback is having more damping, so 0.875, 0.08, 0.05 compared to all cases. So here you can realize one thing: whenever the damping is more, natural frequency will be less. Whenever you have the another thing, vice versa. So this is the natural phenomena. Whenever the structure is very stiff, the damping will be less. Whenever the structure is very highly damped, then the frequency will be less. So this is like a natural phenomena. Now people are developing some carbon nanotube or some nano composites material. There they are demonstrating like it is having both higher frequency and higher damping. So it is good for dynamic systems. So if you have more stiffness, then it is good. It is going to withstand a higher load. So whenever you have more damping for the same material, then in dynamic condition, it is going to give less amplitude. So in that way, those kind of materials are more preferred. So with recently, some people have demonstrated with CNT and graphene kind of reinforcement. This damping is also more, and the natural frequency or basically stiffness also more. So this is another one, the same thing demonstrated for the fundamental mode. So you can see for the lower the frequency, higher the damping. So that you will get. So this again for this intraplay hybridization for two different boundary conditions we have given. So here you can see again with respect to this WB, WJ, that is how we are orienting along the warp and wept directions. The natural frequency and damping are varying. So when we are keeping two yarns like the banana and jute along both the directions, we are getting the better value for the first mode. So, but when it comes to the other modes, so the WJ, WB is better. That is jute yarn along the warp direction and banana along the webbed direction. It is giving more. And one more thing what we observed is this intraplay hybridization damping is more compared to the other things. See here, you can see for this shortened random 0.1142. So and for other modes also it is slightly higher because of that interaction will be more for the shortened random. So we have the fiber into several small pieces. So n number of pieces will interact with the matrix material. So damping naturally will be more. So that is the reason we are getting more damping for the shortened random fiber orientation. But when it comes to these woven composites, as we are making like mat, so the interaction will be relatively less. But there you have one advantage. There will be two kind of interaction. One between the fabric and the matrix. Another one, you have two different fiber, relatively different strength. So banana and jute also will interact. So that two kind of interactions will be enhancing the So we'll be enhancing the damping. So these are all the things what we found. It is basically the vibration analysis of a structure also very much important when we design a structure out of some new material. So we need to find out natural frequency so that we will come to know the excitation frequency is within the range or not. Then we need to find the damping so that vibration levels we will come to know. Then you have the mode shape. So that will give us idea how the structure is going to vibrate. So even though I can operate with some natural frequency, if I locate the source of excitation near to the vibrating node. So that way it is more useful. So finally, based on the study, the intraplay oriented composites are giving slightly higher mechanical properties compared to the typical woven composites and the shortened random composites. And we found that the nature of weaving pattern influences both damping and the natural frequencies. So these are all, I will share the video with organizers. You can get the PPT from them. So some of things you can go through. So especially these experimental model analysis. You have one thing somewhat lengthy. It goes for 50 minutes. The first one, I think, that is by Professor Peter Avitable. So most of the content of today's presentation has been taken from his presentations only. So you can go through. So another thing, somewhat how to do this model analysis using software, and for complicated component how to do. So those informations are there, along with one link for DMA. So if you have any questions, you can ask now.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. It was an extremely informative, enjoyable, and above all, valuable session, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Jairaj, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So I will share the
Thank you,
PPT
sir.
through uh, HOD and so again I thank Dr. Taniyachalam and Dr. Adi Narayanan for giving me an opportunity to interact with the other participants. So I will share the PPT. And maybe you can go through this. Any doubt regarding free vibration kind of thing, you can send a mail. So jairaj@nitk.edu.in. So whatever I'm able to help, I will help. Okay. So thank you.